A new state health order requires vaccines if you want to go to big indoor events with more than 500 people. Chances are, if you've been to an indoor concert in Denver this year, you've already seen those restrictions in action. The new rules require proof of vaccination to go to indoor, unseated events with more than 500 people in Arapahoe, Adams, Boulder, Jefferson counties. Also applies in Denver and Broomfield. Venues owned by AEG and Live Nation already require proof of vaccination or a recent negative test. They've been doing that since October. Those companies own or operate a ton of places in town where you see shows. The Gothic, Bluebird, Ogden Theater, Mission Ballroom, and the Fillmore Auditorium. So we're curious, did Denver need a mandate if most of the big concert venues are doing this on their own?
Some, venues are, allowing for, testing instead of vaccine. And while we're going to have that grace period here, we really do want to move to a place where, the vaccine is the requirement to get into these types of events.
Scott Bookman, state's COVID incident commander. You heard Scott mention a grace period. The order allows the venues to accept negative COVID tests instead of vaccination up through December 1st. After that, it has to be proof you're fully vaxxed to get into a concert. We looked at the state's weekly outbreak data, trying to find if there were recent outbreaks tied to the kind of large indoor events covered by this new health order. I want to bring in Steve Steger to talk about this. Steve, the state believes that there are such outbreaks. It's tracing them that's really tough.
Really tough. We've talked about this. Contact tracing in general has been tough over the last few months because there are, once again, so many cases and the contact tracers are starting to get burned out. But these cases in particular are pretty tricky. A lot of these large events, like a concert, even a sporting event, they tend to draw people in from all over. Now, they're not just coming from the same geographical area. So when they go home, days later, they end up testing positive. Case investigators may ask where they've been, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge to make the connection. Glenn Mays, a professor of health policy at Colorado School of Public Health, he says that health agencies across the country have actually been working to try to improve the way that they talk to each other.
It can be multiple public health agencies doing those case investigations and contact tracing, and it's more difficult for them to see patterns in terms of people who are at the same event. There's been some significant improvements in technology and also just in standardizing the protocols for how we do this work across multiple public health agencies.
Late this afternoon, I talked to one of the researchers who helps model COVID transmission for the state. He said that this public health order itself may not move the needle much on transmission, but this is what I found interesting. He says that there's data that shows that simply announcing a public health order is enough to get people's attention. It reminds them that the virus is spreading, might lead to them taking some precautions, even if they're not directly impacted by this, even if they're not going to concerts or those unseated events with more than 500 people.
I feel like that, Steve, is one of the things that hopefully we've kind of learned through the pandemic, that when one of these orders comes out, it's not necessarily about 100% compliance. Look, that person over there is doing it wrong. If you get the vast majority of people going, oh yeah, sure, that's no problem, then you can make a positive impact.
And it's interesting because some of the loudest voices are like, well, this doesn't do much, right? What's an event with 500 people, and what does it matter if you're in a seat or you're not in a seat? I talked to the epidemiologist about that today. The unseated part of this has a lot to do with the fact that people are crowded together. Your likelihood of transmitting something is a lot higher. So there is reasoning behind this, but also just the fact that there's an order might actually get people's attention.
Steve Steger reporting from an unseated event to me in a seated event. Thank you, Steve.